And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our very first all characters ranked best to worst in Star Wars Hunters. If you guys know me, you may have heard a few titles: King of Trippy, God's Gift, the mobile gaming, the director, the video gaming division. You may have heard some stuff like that. But what that means, as all those titles suggest, is one of my favorite things when I'm playing games like this is to rank all these characters from best to worst. And I'm really excited to do our very first one for Star Wars Hunters, and hopefully you guys are too. And if you are, leave that like down below. I'm looking forward to the next time we do this list and seeing what's gonna change on here. But here's the overall snapshot that we have currently for June 2024. And I think there's two caveats I want to put out there. The number one caveat is, you could be the best player in the game, but if you don't have a great team that can support you, some of these characters that might be amazing don't feel as good if you don't have a team really supporting you. And number two, kind of with that said, we talked about the team aspect, there's also a personal aspect. If you're an amazing player, you can make any of these characters feel really darn good. But if you're a player that's up and coming, even some of the best characters, you might not be able to feel the mastery of them. However, I do feel like this is going to be a good all-around perspective with these characters. And with that said, since we have 13 of them, let's get this party started. We're going to start from the bottom, and then soon we'll be here. Coming at the bottom of the list, I feel like people are pretty on point and on the same page of this. It's got to be Sprocket. We're putting Sprocket in the Carbonite tier, our lowest tier, and with the highest one being Kyber. The best way to summarize Sprocket, he's one of the 3 support characters that we have in the game currently, and he's just the worst out of those 3. Zeta and Score being the other 2. Sprocket doesn't really feel like he excels in much. If you were looking for something with healing, the other characters do it better. If you're looking for something with damage, well, you should just be looking at a non-support character. The ultimate Ultra turret feels a little bit lackluster. I like the concept of this guy. I think there might be a world in the future where he could be a lot better, but it's cool that he's commanding droids and he's able to, for example, this targeting droid, increase the damage on a particular, but then again, just have a good attacker. He's got healing, which is all right, but there are just better healers. So overall, in a world where you only need maybe 1 or 2 healers in the game at most, Sprocket just falls off, and there's really not a point to using him, especially when the other ones are a little bit easier to get to. So for now, Sprocket, I think he's at the bottom of the list, but let's move up to the next tier where we have our first Bronzium character, and that's gonna be Jedi, or do we say J3DI? I don't know. Now again, I think this character is definitely more usable than Sprocket, 100%. However, there are, kind of like in the Sprocket situation, there are better damage dealers or just better melee units in the game. I mean, long story short, Graz and Reeve are just overall way better than this guy. And if you're selecting characters, someone picks Graz, you can get Reeve. If someone picks Reeve, you can take Graz. The only interesting thing about this guy is the fact that he's got like a knockoff force pull, which could be helpful. Pulling people off their objectives might be helpful, or if someone's trying to pursue your ally, you can kind of pull him, direct the attention on you instead. He's got this weird self-healing thing, which is kind of all right. And his ultimate's okay. There are much better ultimates with the other folks here, but in situations where you got to do some crowd control, there's a lot of people together, the whirlwind is kind of nice. However, I feel like he doesn't really have more than that. I feel like he's maybe missing one more ability to make him really interesting, but right now he's just got a kind of force pull and he just swings a lightsaber around. Not much going on here. And now we move up to the Chromium tier, and I feel like in Chromium's where things start actually getting interesting once you get past the Sprocket as well as the Jedi barrier, where we have Char inside of our Chromium tier as well as Sprocket. Char is really interesting. He's one of the tanks in the game. However, again, there are going to be better tanks overall. I think the biggest and most interesting thing about Char is his regen booster, where he becomes invulnerable, he can heal himself, and all incoming damage is converted into healing, which is very helpful when you're trying to take an objective. Use this ability, absorb all the damage, and heal instead. That is really darn cool. In the snare trap and laser tether, I find these mostly helpful to pair in with his basic ability, which is him with a shotgun. Basically, the shotgun doesn't have an incredible range, it feels like, so you want to keep your enemies pretty close to you. So with the snare trap, the laser tether, it'll keep them close to you, so when you do use your scatter gun. But again, I think the coolest thing about him, he's a tank, he's got a massive health pool, has self-healing regeneration, which that is going to be the coolest thing. Great character for when you're trying to take over objectives, and if you have a very good healer on your team, they're really going to do a great job supporting Char. And then we have Slingshot. I think I may have said Sprocket. If I said Sprocket, cut that out. Slingshot is the other one that we have in our Chromium tier list. Now, Now, when I came to play Star Wars Hunters, I was really excited to play this because it's a freaking droidica. I was expecting a different design for the character overall, but it's a tank. I was expecting more of a damage dealer. But it's not to say you can't do any damage. And just like the droidica we've seen in Star Wars, you kind of have to balance the shield. When you have your shield up, you kind of have that feeling of invulnerability. You're able to start kind of being a menace on the field. But also, when you're rolled up into a ball, you're going to move a little bit faster. So mobility is all right on this guy. His ult ability, Rocket Stomp, kind of gives him the splash effect, so it's kind of great again. When you have a crowd control situation, just kind of bounce around, slowing, damaging everyone around him. I think, again, the biggest thing that he's going to suffer from is, again, if you're looking for a tank, there are better tanks in the game to have, whether it's Graz or Sentinels, we're going to discuss here. And if you're looking for a damage dealer, well, there's other damage dealers that are a little bit better than him. I think that's going to be the biggest problem with this game. In a game where you only need 4 hunters per team, people are going to gravitate towards the top, 4 or 5, maybe 6 characters. I think there's just better characters to choose from than this guy, but don't get it wrong. He's definitely a fun character to use, especially if you're a massive Separatist droid fan. And then we move into our Aurodium bracket, where we have both Utuni as well as Arental. Man, Utuni's one of those characters where sometimes it just clicks, man. Once you master swapping between his long range and then short range blasters, you start getting into a rhythm, baby. There's a combo to be had here. With Utuni, you want to take advantage of the imploder. When you throw that, it pulls everyone together. And that's when you really want to take advantage of your arc blaster or your pulse blaster, where especially if you're in close range combat, switch to the close range blaster, and then you can just spray affect them with that lovely lightning arc. I kind of get like a little Palpatine vibes. Unlimited power! Imagine if the Utuni was truly the Sith Lord behind the Clone Wars. It also is kind of nice. You kind of got ways to control your enemies. Is really what this guy brings, especially with the hands off. Kind of also feels a little bit like the Sentinel, where you can kind of push people back. Great when we, for example, got people getting a little too close for you. Push them back a little bit, knock them off a ledge. The only thing that I'm not too crazy about is the scrap cannon ultimate. Feels like it takes way too long to set up when you finally activate it, and it's okay, but it's not the best ultimate in the game by any means. The good news is his ultimate does have some good range. It's kind of the opposite of Arental, where Arental needs to get close. Utini can go far, but there's a lot of setup to it. Overall, this can be a really fun character to play as. And then we have Arental, who's currently the Arena Pass character for Star Wars Hunters. This character is a very specific play style. Damage dealer in the game, and if you know how to use him, you're gonna kick serious butt. The best way I like to describe this guy, he reminds me of the old school Call of Duty days, where you would want to rush with your UMP-45, get your Russian class, get up close and personal, light folks up, and get some big kills. That's kind of what he's about. His weapon has great rates of fire. You kind of got to get into a close range to really feel the full effect of it. And his movement is really good. Great for trying to rush for objectives, or also kind of getting out of the way of your opponent, especially for a mobile shooter game. People already have a hard time playing on their little iPhones, trying to move their thumbs around. And if you're jumping around like a flea at a circus, it gets really hard to target him. And it's great as well. He can push and like kind of body chuck people. And I love his air assault. It's great for clearing out objectives, especially when you're doing any control type of event. Jumping in and dispersing everyone is a great strategy to have. Again, this guy is meant to be fast, quick, and annoying. I overall like him. I did a review the other day on him. He's not the best hero in the game by any means, but he's all right. Overall, fun character, but there are much better characters that you might want to play with. We get into the Beskar tier now, and this is really where I feel like most people are going to start playing with these characters. At a minimum, this and Kyber is where most people are going to play with their characters. The other characters are cool and situational, but I feel like these are the top characters you really should be focusing on in the game. Zaina, Diago, Graz, and Amarvex are going to be put in the Beskar tier. Let's start off with Zaina. Zaina's our other support character that we have after Sprocket, and this is just a much better one. One thing is, well, you're going to get access to Zaina a lot sooner than Sprocket, number one. But then thing number two, she focuses on what she's supposed to be, a overall good support character that's meant to heal the team and just be that on the field combat meta. Her ultimate feels really good when you need to kind of rally everyone and just kind of hold down an objective, or just get an objective from your opponent. When you drop that, you have that confidence you and your team can get this objective locked in. Her blaster pistols, all right, again, she's not meant to be a damage dealer, but when she needs to get into the fray, she has something to kind of back her up. She can release constant bursts of back reactive bombs for splash healing on the team. The dodge roll is the only thing I'm not, too crazy about. I feel like I'd rather have something else here, but, being able to roll out of the way of a Graz is okay. Mobility is one thing that you gotta not take for granted in this game. Everyone, you can't sprint for most characters, and you're kind of walk slow. Mobility is kind of on the slower side, but when characters have some sort of way to move around the field a bit faster or to be a bit more agile, there is a benefit to be had. Overall, solid. I will say when I first started playing Hunters, I wasn't too crazy about Zayna because I just wasn't too crazy about the support role, but when I was starting to play the game, I kind of got into a groove, and one thing you got to learn in this game, you need at least one support healer on the team if you really want your team to get to the end zone. And Zayna is not a bad ticket to make your team get a little bit more wins on the belt. Then we have Diago. Man, this is a character, when you're locked in, you feel so dang good. This is like, quick scoping sniper's dream house right here. The slug thrower rifle it's a high damage rifle. So if you can try to land those headshots, you're going to be laying down fools left and right. And it can't even be blocked, but it can't even be deflected by lightsabers, which is great. His ultimate feels really good, really taking it to the next level, those quick one-shot kills. But that's really it to Diago. Yeah, he's got other abilities like heightened senses, which lets him see his enemies around him. He's got the proximity mine, which is okay, but easily, destroyable. And he's got a grappling hook. Really, I feel like the main highlight is just his damage. And if you can be a good shot, you are gonna love this character. He's got low health, so you want to stay away from combat. You want to try to stay as far as possible. And the good news is if you do get a little too close range, when you're not zooming in, you're able to try to quickly fire someone off that's nearby you. And I think that's one thing I really like about this character too. You can't really aim in the sense of a zoom in with all the other characters. Very few of them. There's only like really one other one, right? Amara Vex. So it makes you feel a bit more accurate in this game. Just like you can't take for granted characters that have good movement capabilities. You don't want to take for granted characters that increase your accuracy by being able to zoom in a more traditional way. Overall, love Diago, but if you're not a very accurate person, this is not a great character then for you. Then next up, we have Graz. You know what? I don't even care about all of his abilities. What I care about is the fact that he is a thick daddy Wookiee, and he is great when you need to take on objectives, when you need him to take up the attention. Everyone's trying to focus fire, knock him down. This is where Graz really shines. He is truly a Wookiee juggernaut. Of course, though, he's got some great abilities with him. For example, it's great that he's got a self-heal capability. His stampede, it can be incredibly annoying, disrupting the team when they're trying to do some work. And his ultimate Boulder Bash, if you can time it out, it's like playing bowling, baby. You're going to be shooting for strikes, and it's very satisfying, especially in smaller buildings. When you throw the rocket, it's bouncing around everywhere. It feels like you're playing pinball. This is one of those characters that if you have a good team, Graz is really going to shine. If you're going to pair him up with Zayna and or Skora, Graz is going to be taken to the next level. And oftentimes, he's going to be carrying big wins, especially in things like dynamic control. But again, a character can really only be good as the player and also only as good as the team. So it's kind of one of those tanks that, it does rely on having a good team to support what Graz is meant to be. And then lastly, in our Beskar tier, we have Amara Vex. Now, when I played the soft launch many moons ago, Amara Vex is like the most popular character. Over time, they added some things which kind of tamed her a little bit more, but nonetheless, I still think she's a really good addition to the game. Her blaster rifle feels good. It's good for pretty much all around shooting, it feels like, close, medium, long range. Her ultimate Seeker salvo is very satisfying, great for clearing out rooms and objectives. Definitely one of my more favorite ultimates in the game. She's got decent mobility with her grapple hook, helps her get to different vantage points a little bit quicker and getting out of sticky situations. She's got her single missile launcher, which is great for trying to get that finishing blow on someone. It's great that it's like an auto tracking missile. Only thing I'm not too crazy about is the tracking scan. It reveals a location of enemies with low health, which is like, there could be more desired. Overall, I feel like Amara Vex is a really solid all-around damage dealer. And then we move to the peak of the peak, baby, the Kyber tier, where we have Sentinel, Reeve, and Skora. So I'm going to be giving awards to each of these characters. Number one, Sentinel, I think, is the best all-around character in the game. Plus, it's also a stormtrooper, so that kind of makes it a little bit cooler. Even though he's a tank, he fills in a lot of roles, and he does a great job at them. Yes, he's a tank. He's got a great health pool, especially when he has that combat shield up. Again, very Battlefront 2 reminiscent. So when you add the shield health on top of your character's health, this guy's going to survive a long time. Again, hopefully you have a healer like a Skora or a Zayna to really get the most out of him. He could survive a long time and help you capture those objectives. Suppressing shot is amazing for handling things like Graz or other characters that might be getting a little too close to your comfort. If you can time this right, it's great knocking a Graz off the edge of a cliff. And again, barrel slam, kind of like suppressing shot, being able to just knock people back yet again. So he's got great ways of trying to keep people off of him. And that E-Web cannon, man, if you could just make sure you're accurate, you're going to be landing some serious heat with him. His ultimate is the only thing that's probably the weakest about him, the Empire's Finest. He summons 2 stormtroopers, which follow him and fire at his enemies, which, again, it's okay having that extra backup. There are definitely far better ultimates in the game, I think, but overall, he's got a great balance of damage and survivability on him. Definitely one of those characters where if you don't know what to choose, likely Sentinel's a good choice. I feel like every single match, I'm always seeing Sentinel. Rarely do I see a match where no one's got a Sentinel. Then we got Reeve, whose award's gonna be the best melee character in the game. Like, this is, compared to Jedi, this is a much better character. It has a lot more dynamic angles than, for example, Jedi, who's got the one gimmick of pulling and that's it. Her lightsaber does great amounts of damage. Her ultimate, holy cow, reminds me of Anakin Skywalker from Battlefront 2, where she can stun everyone for like a crap ton of time, pulls them towards her, and then you and your team just smack the living daylights out of the people thriving in pain. She's got a great vicious leap, which kind of feels a little bit almost like Aaron Tall's leap. So again, clearing out objectives and kind of getting a little aggressive with your enemies. But also, man, she's got this ruthless pursuit, which feels a little bit like Darth Maul again in Battlefront 2, a big lunge towards your enemies. So, and it's also a great way of navigating the map a little bit faster. She's got a great deflection ability on her lightsaber, and she also has a lightsaber throw for a little bit of longer engagements. Man, overall, I gotta say, this is a very solid melee character. I'm not crazy about melee characters, but if I have to play a melee character, it's gotta be this one. Great ultimate, and pretty much great all-around kit that she has. And then finally, lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have Skora. And I know I said Sentinel's the best overall character in the game, but I think I can say, for me personally, I think Skora is the best character in the game. I don't know. You see the distinction there? I think Skora really elevates any character to a much higher capability. And I feel like if one team has Skora but not the other, the team without Skora is at a massive disadvantage. She's a support character and overall the best healer in the game, in my opinion. Her basic ability, that dart gun, holy cow. It's a long-range gun that's gonna let you heal allies from across the map or deal damage, and it automatically does it. It's not like you gotta switch in between like Utuni, the unstable cocktail. When you hear, I got the healing touch, it makes you feel like you're gonna win. This is sort of like Zeta's ultimate, but way better, where it doesn't just heal your allies, it also damages enemies. And again, automatically, you don't have to like switch in and out. So this is great when you're trying to take over objectives, you throw it in, you just see everyone scatter out, that's the enemy, team huddled inside the health pool. Fantastic healing, but she's got other great stuff. Speaking of healing, she can heal herself to stay out of combat a little bit, and she's gonna heal herself, keeping herself in the combat a lot longer. Stim Shot is amazing, which fires a big boost of temporary health, and if you could throw this on like a Graz or Sentinel, holy cow, your team just feels like invincible, and you can just keep spamming this. And Adrenaline Boost is great for getting across the map really quickly, getting out of sketchy situations. So hopefully, as you become competitive in the game and you try to climb up the ranks in Star Wars Hunters, you have someone, maybe that's you or someone else, that's playing Skora, because I think she's the best character overall. She's not a Sentinel, where Sentinel's got great damage. I can get some kills of her, but overall, she's gonna, I just feel like I'm gonna win if I'm having a Skora on the team. And if I see the other team has Skora and I don't, I'm like, oh shoot, this is gonna be a tough battle. If you gotta, here's the biggest thing. If you see a Skora huddling around her ally, she's gonna stand behind, kill everyone while they're trying to get work done. If you're not killing her, you're not gonna have a good time killing off everyone else around her. And ladies and gentlemen, Gungs and Droids, that's gonna wrap it for our very first All Hunters ranked from best to worst. Really excited to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like overall for me, this is how I see the characters in the game. But again, the biggest thing about this game is that if you're not in that like top 5, 6, 7 characters, people don't really get to play with them as much. So we'll have to see in the future, will there be a way to respect and enjoy all these different characters? Otherwise, we're pretty much just gonna gravitate towards the Kyber, Beskar, and maybe you'll dip into some of the Aurodium tier characters once in a while. Leave that like, comment down below. Would love to hear your thoughts as well. Looking forward to the next time we rank all the characters, and until then, always remember, it's great to be in the Empire today.